3 more.
I'd like to call this committee of the whole meeting to order. Members of the audience are welcome to ask questions and share insights on committee of the whole agenda items as they are being considered by the school board. Please raise your hand to be recognized by the board president. You are asked to come to the microphone so that everyone can hear your question or idea. We ask that you keep your comments focused on the agenda item being considered. Roll call, please, Jesse.
Present. Here.
Here.
Here?
Here.
Here.
All right, we're moving on to item C, approval of the agenda. I'd like a motion to approve the agenda as written.
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. And moving on to item 2, presentations. Item A, student, staff, community recognitions. There are none this evening. And moving on to item B, referendum project update. Mr. Kunkel.
Good evening. So I'll start off by going over some of the FIMs that we're currently working on over the past month, or we'll start to work on the next couple of weeks, then give a very brief budget update, and then talk about a couple of action items that we have for additional scopes of work. So for the full dehumidification system over at the elementary, they're looking at getting all the piping installed and insulated by the end of this week. Then we'll get the ceiling contractor on board to reinstall that ceiling and be able to put those spaces together, and then we're still looking at having the chiller installed prior to school starting. Flooring replacement, we've ran into a slight issue with lead times right now. It's going to be a bit of a crunch, but our flooring installer still believes that we're going to be able to get that material installed on time prior to school starting, with enough time for buildings and grounds staff to move that material into the classroom, or move items into the classrooms. Gym floor resurfacing, still looking at mid-August for that, so no issues take place prior to school starting. The new addition, right now we're currently working on foundation walls. They're putting up the forms for those. Footings went in place last week. No issues with soils, which was one of our larger concerns for potential ads, so no issues there. Masonry is going to start next week. Bottle fill stations, the infills at the gym have been put in place now for the inside, so the water bottle fill stations, those will go into place prior to school, looking probably 3rd week of August for those items. Restroom fixture replacements, I believe they're probably wrapping that up at the middle school today. Worst case will be tomorrow, but they're pretty much all taken care of now as well. New office and small gym demolition. As I'm sure you heard a couple of weeks ago, that gym largely went down. Running into a couple issues there, and that's what we'll talk about for the potential ad. Roofing replacement, ballast was removed last week, and they are re-roofing through this week, and then they're just promising to be done before school starts, but as their schedule allows and we don't get any rain days, we could likely be looking at being done with that by the end of next week. Anthel's gym flooring replacement, again looking at mid-August. We have all the material on site right now, the maintenance building across from the middle school north side. They're looking to move that material into the Anthel's gym starting next Tuesday or Wednesday. Flooring replacement at the middle school, it's they may have wrapped that up today, otherwise I'm guessing they'll finish that up tomorrow. So buildings and ground staff can start waxing the floors and start putting all the rooms back together there. Interior lighting upgrade, everything that's able to take place this summer with some lead time issues is basically complete now. We have some surface mount fixtures in the 3-level building that we're gonna have to schedule during vacations and breaks and things like that, so. Anthel's gym painting, that was an additional item that we decided to use an allowance for the overall miscellaneous painting allowance. Phase 1 of that is complete. Some of the drop dry paint did get outside of the Anthel's gym, so the crew's been working on that the last few days to make sure everything's cleaned up. Should be taken care of by the end of tomorrow. Then Anthel's gym furred out walls, that's something we'll also talk about as an added scope. Then looking at increased main security, we're really just looking for a pass-through window at the main entrance of the vestibule here at the high school. That work's gonna be taken care of in the next week or so. Will be a wish list item to further secure that area that we'll try to address next summer. And last is installing the emergency generator. We've had the saw cutting all performed. They'll be on site to do the earthwork next week, or I should say tomorrow actually. And then we'll be pouring foundations, the pad, the site concrete, and send that generator. And also don't see any issue with that being complete before the prior of school starting. As far as budget goes, my boss is always keen to say that we're always on budget. With that being said, we are in a really good place right now. We have one hiccup here that we'll talk about shortly, but you know, even looking at a lot of bad case scenarios of what could potentially come up, I still feel very confident that we'll have over $1 million for wish list items on top of all the scope that we're trying to complete here, so. And with that being said, going back to the small gym at the middle school, so we were hoping to save the south and west walls of the original gym. Looking at it now, it was in a lot worse shape than we or the structural engineer architect even thought it was. What we're looking at right now, we've done a lot of exploratory work. We've had the architect and structural engineer on site. The south wall is going to need to come down. We need to do 2 more bits of exploratory work, identifying some structural steel connections that we're gonna do tomorrow morning. But we do anticipate that that west wall will be able to be salvaged. So the number that you guys seen, the 205,000, it's a very conservative number in my mind. We don't have the exact scope, but I base it off a very conservative number that we think is gonna move forward. So that would include the south wall going down as a select demolition. There would be some saw cutting involved with that. There would be some shoring that would be needed in the passageway just south of the gym. Ceiling removal and ceiling reinstall would need to take place. Some select roofing just to get that away from the wall that's gonna come down. There's some ephes at that vestibule that's gonna need to be replaced as well. And then basically just going back up with the block and brick walls. So that's a large majority of what's gonna take place at the small gym. On top of that, we did have an allowance to refinish the walls at the Anthel's gym. Our original plan was to peel off that tile, sandblast off the mastic, but after the bleachers were taken out, it was found that there's some areas of mastic, some areas of grout, and some areas of grout and mastic. We can easily remove that mastic, but there's really no good way to remove that grout with maintaining the finish you guys are gonna want. So after plenty of discussion between CISA and the district admin team, decided to fur those walls out, steel stud drywalls, or steel stud walls that would have double layer of high impact drywall. And so we're gonna go up, just basically cover up the ceramic tile, then make a little pitch slope, and one side, the east side, will also have a chase. And then so that's the grand majority of the work, but then we're also gonna have to pull out all the mechanical, electrical, plumbing items, so they're flush on that wall versus the existing ceramic wall. And that we're budgeting at 72,000, and the vast majority, which would be the steel studs and drywall, we have prices on that now, so. Any questions on those items?
When you say a conservative estimate, I just want to make sure that we're all understanding that correctly. Conservative means that would be a pretty, a high number, that you're allocating what you believe to be an adequate.
That's correct,
All right.
especially for the small gym. If we move forward with the scope that I'm seeing that we're gonna move forward with, I would sure hope that's 20%, 20, 30% high.
So financially, we're prepared to take these change orders on, and it's not gonna
These
muck the
contingencies,
program up?
yeah, these contingencies were definitely planned, speaking to the small gym. It was widely known that we were gonna have some sort of change order, and Luke set you guys up to a nice spot to where, you know, we wouldn't have a hiccup like this and be in any financial trouble. So again, with what we see here even having some more minor issues pop up, we could still be looking at over $1 million in wish list items.
So a follow-on question then, so presuming that south wall gets demoed and rebuilt, how does that affect then the next phase when that new office part is built, financially?
Not gonna be any changes. This 205 fully encapsulates what that change would look like.
Okay,
And the sooner we can get approved from the structural and from the board, hopefully tonight, the sooner we can get that small gym coming up, or small office coming up out of the ground.
does spending that money now kind of offset the costs of what it'll be when, again, in that next phase, that office gets built?
You know, I'm not quite sure about offset. It's just, it's unplanned construction, and the stability of that wall just isn't good enough. So it's not like we'll incur additional cost
Right.
once the office is built. This is kind of a one-stop shop of addressing the issue that we currently have, and then we would not have any more price increases moving forward on that scope unless something, you know, unknown popped up.
One more question from your earlier items. Can you talk a little bit about the turnover plan, turning the middle school building and the elementary school building back over to the district?
Sure, and so Cease and the admin team have been meeting weekly on that item. The middle school largely tomorrow, or worst case Wednesday, it's gonna be turned over to the district. Now, we're gonna be working on a move-in schedule starting tomorrow, just to make sure that the Buildings and Grounds Department has enough time to, again, wax the floors, move all the items back in. But as far as the contractors go, we're looking to turn over all areas in the next couple of days. Elementary school, we're really still working on lead times on that carpet. And I would hate to provide a date that isn't gonna stick. So we're trying to get those dates locked in, but I don't have enough information to give a solid recommendation of when staff can come back into the building.
I know
But
we have a lot of staff that are chomping at the bit,
I
so.
can definitely imagine, and for the next summer school session, that will not be affected by this flooring issue.
Okay. Does anyone have any further questions for Brad? Okay, so item B, we're going to receive and place on file. So now we're going to move on to item C, which is our action item this evening. So it's an action item due to time-sensitive nature of change orders. I'm looking for a motion to approve the change orders greater than $60,000 for structural issues revealed at the Spooner Middle School.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Okay. Any discussion? We have a roll call vote, please, Jesse.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Brad. I think we're good.
Is that take care of it? All right,
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
All right, we're going to move on to item D, update from the district nurse, and this month there is none. All right, and we're moving on to item E, consider the technology surplus sale. Mr. Miller. Okay.
Okay, so usually about this time in the summer is the time of year that we have accumulated some technology of various types that's obsolete, and we make arrangements to dispose of it in appropriate manners. For this year, we have a slightly different situation in that, there we go. We have the Chromebooks that we replaced last spring through our Chromebook replacement, and I have a large number of them that although they are not ideal or suitable for use in the school for what we're doing in our classrooms and learning areas, they do have resale value in the public sector in terms of still being able to be used, and there is a dollar value that they could be potentially sold for. So this opens up several options to look at differently than I would typically dispose of or recycle technology. And it comes down to my line of sight. You gotta love technology. All right, so there are three options. The first option is do what we always do, which would be I would line up a technology recycler. This is the easiest option from a district perspective as far as work goes. We basically just have the stuff in a pile. Somebody shows up, they're gonna haul it away. Sometimes they'll give us values for it if they think there's some resale value, and then they dispose of it legally. The problem with the Chromebooks is the price they're willing to pay is either they're not willing to tell me until they actually get them, or we've been given a quote of $5 to $10 per device, which is rather low, or they're just willing to take them off our hands. So the second option, sorry, I know what's going on. Option two is we just sell them ourselves. And this has the potential to, one, offer people in our community a rather affordable device, considerably less than what they might go to buy a new one or even a used one. But it involves a lot of work on the part of the staff to prep the devices for the sale and actually manage a sale in terms of marketing it, selling them, collecting the money, turning the product over to the people that are buying them at a time of the year when I want my staff and myself focused on prepping our staff and students to be ready to go with school year when technology starts. So option three is what I'm kind of looking at basing a recommendation on here, and this is the idea of partnering with a vendor to do the selling for us, ideally a local vendor. It cuts down on the time that we just have to make sure devices are ready to go as a refurbished device. Again, it makes these devices available to people in and around our communities at a rather affordable price. There's a greater revenue potential for us to generate than, recycling, obviously. And I like the idea of providing a local vendor the opportunity to, generate business, make money off of this, rather than turning it to a reseller that is coming from someplace like Illinois or Minneapolis or something like that. So the proposal that I am putting forth for you tonight is to consider a partnership with Sam's Resale, or its iPlay Quarters Arcade, a business downtown Spooner, where we would partner with them to sell our Chromebooks for us. So in other words, we would provide them with the Chromebook or Chromebooks to sell. They will then do the marketing, the sale, collect all the information and documentation we need to make these sales in a way that we need to record and document stuff for the district. In terms of this business venture, we would then split the revenue in a 75%, 25% split for them to do the marketing and resale of devices. And I'm asking the board then to consider of that money coming back into the district, rather than going directly to the general fund, to consider reinvesting it into our technology accounts to be used for my technology infrastructure projects that we'll be taking on this year. Just get things further and farther along than we would without that extra revenue. There's no guarantee on how many or how few Chromebooks we may or may not sell. So the potential is there to do a fairly significant amount or not a lot. But a couple other items then to consider with this proposal is the price we're looking to sell them is about $40 to $70, and that can fluctuate because the market is like the stock market fluctuates. The Chromebooks are being sold with no warranty, so we are not going to be taking care of products for people that buy them, to come back to the school. Just a legal one is that we need to sell these to U.S. residents, and we are not selling them to people that are going to export them to foreign countries. In other words, we don't want to see our Chromebooks ending up in some place like North Korea. The length of the sale, we're looking ideally, if we could, to try and start as school starts in September. And as long as we have devices for sale and people are interested, going potentially through April, because that hits several high points in the year that are times that people are more interested in buying around the holidays and for some reason tax season. So at the end of all this, the money is then distributed, like I said, back to the district, working with them along with the documentation. If we have unsold Chromebooks or this just does not fly and people are not interested, we would just go back to basically option one, which is we will recycle whatever we have left the way we normally would. So that's a proposal that I'm just asking you guys to bring forth for consideration. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them right now. Yes? These are going on, they're 3-year-old devices, they'll be going on their 4th year. So we've used them for 3 years and we are now looking to, well, we have replaced them. And we are keeping a few as spares in the inevitable case that somebody forgets one or breaks one, so we can speed up the time of, or lack of downtime for students while we're fixing or that.
Okay, any further questions for Mr. Miller?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay.
You made a comment earlier when you were talking about plan number 2, and the words you used was you had to prep the devices for the sale.
Yep,
Are you telling me that on option 3, you don't have to prep the devices for the sale?
we'll be prepping them, but we will not be doing all the marketing of advertising and then having to schedule times for people to come in, pick up, drop off, put them in their hands, turn the cash over to district office, track that kind of thing.
Are you cleaning the devices of any identifying markers in the device to
Yep.
show the student's identity?
Yep, we'll remove any of the stickers we have on them. We are wiping them of any data
Okay.
they would have, so they're just going out. Essentially, is an old refurbished device that looks like it would be a brand-new Chromebook as far as starting it up.
And you say there's approximately 400 of them?
We have 400 to 600 of them, depending on how many we keep as spares throughout the district and how many people are actually interested in buying throughout our communities.
So the other question would be, we do have stores in our community that are computer stores. Have they been approached? Have they been given an opportunity to deal with this? Or how did we select a certain?
I selected iPlay because I'm aware that they do deal in reselling used technology, whether it be gaming systems, computers, iPads, Chromebooks, devices like that. So he has a marketing channel for selling those kind of devices to the public and that. So that was my reasoning for going with them as opposed to just a regular computer store.
I took that make and model and I ran it today on eBay. And you can buy them on eBay for $79 refurbished.
Yep.
Right now. So
That's why I'd say
a good price.
it's a good price, but that's also coming from somebody that may have a warranty that goes with
Right.
it. So that's why I'm
And I
not
don't
looking to-
anticipate that they're going to be selling 400 of them at that price either. They might have half a dozen or so. But the other topic would be, you're also, I never saw it anywhere until you just spoke, but in the proposal that we presented, you mentioned that you want the proceeds from the sale to go back to the IT. And I guess I'm going to ask the board if we not do that. We need to deal with budgets one at a time. No matter what we do, I guess my thought would be is that it should go to the general fund and we should deal with the budget separately. It's just my thought. We're trying to kind of roll over something and that, I don't know if we're setting bad practice by doing that, bad precedence by doing that. It's just a question, but I guess I'm going to come back.
Can I just add one comment to that? The only reason I'm asking, or is asking that, is I am looking at this as an infrastructure project that's going back into technology systems that support everybody across the district, you know, different departments, grades, students, staff, programs. It's not just going back to one club or one fund or something like that.
I understand. I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying that if we go back to our policy, like we were talking at the last meeting, I'm just going to say, I think that we should throw them out on the open market as a bid. There's companies that do it. I mentioned it the last time. There's school districts that are selling computers on the internet right now under these websites. And unless we make an attempt to do that, I just don't see how it's going to, we have an issue dealing with providing a product to somebody to sell for us who's going to make sure that we get our money back. We have to make sure we know how many go there. To me, it just seems like it could be a mess operating that way. And I would rather, before we did that, I would either say put it on the open market for the bidding or just set a price and put, a pile of 50 in each building and see how many students and families want to purchase at that price, and we can send them home with the students on the bus. Keep it in the community. There's some people that could use it. I think there's some homeless shelters, some crisis shelters in the area that may use Chromebooks if we got to where we were just going to give them away. There's people that could use them, but I guess my thought is that we're taking a path that I guess we've never done before. We're partnering with somebody from the outside to do our sale for us. I would rather see us do it ourselves and maybe we could get more Chromebooks into the community for our students that need them. And it's not about the money. I'm not talking about the money at all. It's the dollar amount is not a concern. We don't have enough here to make that big of a deal. It's just that I think that I would rather see it go out in the open market first, and if we can't sell them on the open market, then we can hand them off to people. Do we know what the value is then?
I'd be concerned with the amount of time it takes. I know they're swamped now. I know summer and start of school is,
What I'm hearing is that he's gonna have to wipe and clean no matter what. So,
but then there's a lot more to it if we're managing the sale. If
What I'm-
technology has to manage the sale.
Okay, so is there any further discussion? Basically, we're asking for consensus to move this forward to the regular board meeting for consideration.
Agreed.
Okay, okay. And if there's any further questions for Mr. Miller or any other suggestions, you can reach out to the IT department or Dr. Aslan for further information on that. All right. And we're moving on to item F, the 30, 60, 90-day planning cycle. Everybody has a chance to look over that information that was given. Are there any questions? All right. If there are no questions, we are going to receive and place that information on file. And item G, the financial update.
Financial update for the month of June 2021. Got a beginning balance in the checking account, $4,229,748.32. Income during that time of $844,671.92. Had expenditures of $1,487,374.05, and that left a on-hand balance of $3,587,046.19 on the last day of June.
Any questions? Okay, if there's no questions, we are going to receive and place that information on file. And we're moving on to item H, approval of the vouchers. Everyone had a chance to look them over. Any questions? All right, consensus to move to the regular board meeting as part of the consent agenda? Yes. Okay. All right, then we're moving on to item 3. Convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C, to consider the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. Can I have a motion to go into closed session? Roll call, please.
I
Oh,
make that
I'm sorry.
motion.
Sorry.
Get a second.
Or I think.
Second. Yeah. Okay. Roll call, Jesse. Sorry.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
yes.